Nick Saban changed quarterbacks at halftime of the national fucking championship game. Don't tell me you couldn't have done it at some point. They could have done it at any point last year. And I'm not saying it even had to have been a permanent move. Do something to win the game. Yeah, I'm not the only one that has the feelings that I have about John Mateer. I would tell you that you need to pay attention to what I'm saying, though, when it comes to that. And I guess, I mean, we can have this conversation, but the problem that I have with the biggest part is that, look, it's not necessarily a John Mateer problem as much it is an Arbuckle problem, and quite honestly, this year it was a Brent Venables problem. You can't get so stuck on what's going on your defense that you don't take care of what your entire job is, which is to be the CEO of your football program. And that's what he does. And I would tell you, you should be able to trust Kevin Wilson, but Kevin Wilson's not in charge on that side of the ball. You should have put him in charge. And no matter what, you, as the head coach, you have the ability to decide who's going to be playing quarterback. He never made this change, never made the change last year, when he could have made the change multiple times. I was talking about this with Bishop Frank last night. Nick Saban changed quarterbacks at halftime of the national fucking championship game. Don't tell me you couldn't have done it at some point. They could have done it at any point last year. And I'm not saying it even had to have been a permanent move. Do something to win the game when you're not going to win it. All three losses it was poor play by Mateer that did it. All three. What's up, Bishop? Thank you for the super chat, sir. He has to be, you're absolutely right. He has to. Listen, man, I'm going to tell you this. Here's what I would tell you. I think that a lot of people think that he's safe. I think that safe is a relative term to the day in Oklahoma. Look, nothing is very safe. It takes one bad season or one bad game. And I'm going to tell you another thing. You go into this Red River game, and I got to tell you, you guys have heard me say this already. I'm not picking Oklahoma to beat Texas until they do it. And at the very least, you better score some fucking touchdowns. He's 1-3 against Texas, and in those 3 losses, 0 touchdowns. What I was saying is, if you are, and believe me, what it's starting to look like is he's the reverse of Lincoln. Lincoln was all offense, no defense. He's all defense, no offense. And I would tell you that, in my opinion, and the way I feel about it is this. Look, you've got an all-star cast of fucking coaches that have been with you forever. The only one that hasn't, on that defensive side of the ball, grown up with him as coaches and know exactly what he wants is Dreiling. And shit, he's good anyway. And he gets it anyway. Plus, you got Wes Goodwin. He doesn't have to. But you could trust those guys to the point that, like, my opinion is, I don't understand why, as you look at, everybody knows that BV is that dude when it comes to calling defenses. He's that dude. There's no arguing about it. Everybody knew they were going to be elite on defense now. They knew it. What are they? They're elite on defense. But because of how elite he is, why are you not sitting down with your very young offensive coordinator and being that CEO and self-scouting and saying, as a coordinator, looking at this is how I would attack it, and this is what you have, and this is what they're going to do. The good teams will come at you this way. What are you going to do to get around that? And not only that, you would help out your defense as well by doing those things, having these conversations with these offensive guys. And I don't know that it's not happening at all. I don't think it's happened. But I think it's what you have to have happen if you're Oklahoma. If you're going to take that next step, he's got to take that next step. He always talks about doing it's the hard things, and I talked about this with Seawalt. It's the hard things that winning requires. Doing the things that winning requires. You've heard that from him a ton. That's a Dabo thing that he adopted. Okay. Doing the things that winning requires is going to be, you cannot be indifferent to the offensive side of the football. The same standards that you want your defense to live up to day after day after day, you've got to live up to on the offensive side as well. Giving a 29-year-old offensive coordinator autonomy, silly shit. You can't do it. See, Johnny Boy, what's up, man? Bishop, MWG. Oh, well. The running backs were hurt in 2025. I am not giving you guys that. I'm not giving you guys that. And tell me why, Duke. Welcome to the show. Tell me why. Tell me why the offense will be better this season. Or are we just going with hope on that? Because hope is not a plan. We have a system returning. You want that system to return? Because that system got the one quarterback that you want to play hurt early on in the season, and he never played well after that. He had moments in games that he was... That defense and that kicker covered up a lot of things for Oklahoma last year. Okay. I think BV did take some steps as being a complete head coach. One step was firing Joe John, retooling the tight end room with inline blocking tight ends, having tight ends that can play at the SEC level was a step in the right direction. I'll give you that. I'll give you that. Did BV do that, or was that Jim Nagy? And if so, what is it that are we sure that he's taking the step in the right direction? Because here's the thing: if this autonomy for a guy that doesn't seem to know what I mean, there was no commitment to running the football. Because if you're going to tell me that they couldn't run the ball, I'm going to tell you that you're wrong. They ran the ball. They had running backs with 100 yards in 3 straight games, and then they stopped running the fucking ball. It goes right back to Mateer was feeling a little better, so now he's back to out there running and putting himself in danger. It's not a good. That's not a plan. It's not a commitment to a run game with your running backs, and I think that that's what you have to have. 19 carries in that last game, and you only had 14 total for the 2 running backs? Nah. Especially when you got a 17-0 lead and you don't start leaning on those guys. Situational, the things that happen or whatever, and there's a lot of things that went wrong in that football game. But it was the same thing. All those losses, they failed to run the football. They failed to get it done. Quarterback returning, continuity with O-line, running backs, and key pieces in the wide receiver room return. Verbiage and scheme returns. That matters. Trust me, I know. It may matter, but if they were still, you could say that you said in the last thing you were saying, talking about Latrell. How much better were they than Latrell and his offense the year before? They weren't much better. They were still at the bottom of the damn SEC and essentially every statistical category on the offensive side. What this is pointing to is that there's not enough attention being put on it by your head coach. That's bullshit. That's bullshit, bro. And there were other dudes. If they actually had a commitment to the running game, maybe you don't end up having guys that want to leave. And I'm not going to sit. I said this to Bishop last night. I'm not going to sit here and have the Jay Knott talk because I don't know what was going on with Jay Knott. I don't know what happened there, and neither do you, by the way. We know that he got in somebody's doghouse, and maybe multiple people's doghouse. I've seen practice footage that tells me he was pretty good and just wasn't getting opportunities. He only had like 6 carries on the entire season. Maybe he was bad in practice, but I've seen footage that tells me that wasn't the case. So I don't really understand what was going on. The offensive line, no, sir. We're not doing that. We're not doing that. There was times that offensive line did just fine, and it was at the end of the year when they were run blocking. If you get them in a run blocking situation and they knew what they were doing, they were fine. They kept a clean pocket for Mateer, and he'd run out of them. You don't get to just blame the O-line whenever you feel like it. Come on, bro. I think that there's something going on with DeMarco and him. And I'm not going to sit there and do that either. Again, we don't know for sure everything that was going on. And we also know that coaches get in their ways about they like a dude, they don't like a dude or whatever. And I don't know that it was a DeMarco thing. I feel like it may have been an Arbuckle thing. I know that definitely he got on BV's bad side early. And maybe he wasn't. I'm just telling you that I'm not going to go there because I don't know for sure. And I know that nobody does really. If you weren't there, you don't really know. But I know this, they had opportunity. If he was the money that they spent, you should have found out. And I also know that Jim Nagy is expecting that they're paying this much money for these wide receivers to come. They're getting them both in high school and coming out of the portal. Jim Nagy expects those dudes to play. Elijah Thomas, Manny Choice. They've got the kid coming from, that flipped from Wisconsin, what's his name? Stud, right? We got a bunch of dudes that left this year because they haven't, and were never really, we didn't find out what they were about. Ivan Carry-On, dude, 6'7". Everything we saw from him is that he should have been a weapon. He should have been a weapon. It is sad, Duke. It is very sad that we haven't had that running game. Absolutely true. Right. Yeah. No, and that's what I'm saying. It's easy to go that direction. And that's what I'm just not ready to continue putting everything off on everybody else. And this is an absolute, fact. Well, there you go. And that's the point I'm trying to make. And look, I think that the scheme is bad for what they were doing. I mean, you heard it from Teddy and Gabe all year that, like, for what they were trying to do, you weren't going to run the ball well because you were depending on non-blocking tight ends, which I think Caden Helms did a better job. When he came back and finally got healthy, he was doing better at that. I think that Kanik got better at it, but it's just Kanik wasn't a tight end. He's not that big. It's not that he was afraid of contact. Hell, he liked it. But he just wasn't adept at it. He was a ball catching guy. And Caden Helms, for that matter, was as well. The guys that they brought in from the SCS level, they weren't good enough. They weren't good enough. I like the kid they got from Florida, the Rocky Beers kid as well. Look, I like who they're bringing in, obviously. And Jason Witten, he's going to make sure that you're blocking. He was a blocking guy. He was good at everything. Obviously, a Hall of Famer. And then Kevin Wilson's still there to kind of help that along as well. But the truth is, yeah, they were struggling when it came to tight end play. But if your scheme involves you being heavy in 11 and 12 personnel and you don't have the personnel to run that shit, then I struggle to believe in you as a coach. And when you don't, you want to be a heavy run with the quarterback guy and you're not running the quarterback that's better and more dynamic as a runner ever at all, even when you've got your other guys struggling, then I don't trust you. And it's not just that I don't trust Arbuckle. I also don't trust BV to make a change when it needs to be made. And I love BV. You guys know this. I'm a BV fan. I always have been. But I think that we're at a point, at a crossroads in his time at Oklahoma, that it's time for him to show that he's not just a one-trick pony. He must. And I'm going to tell you this, I believe that you missed out. We talk about Texas missing out on a golden opportunity 2 years ago and then even last year. I think you missed a golden opportunity to win a national championship. The best defense in the country was in Norman. They had enough talent on offense to be good, just to not, all you had to do was be serviceable and not do stupid shit, and you win. Even with that defense, you couldn't hold a 17-0 lead. Even with that defense shutting Texas down for 3 quarters, the better part of 3 quarters, you couldn't put any points on the board. You took a late lead in the 3rd quarter and never gave the football back to X-Rob. In the 4th quarter, I think he had 3 carries. Mateer had like 8. It's unfathomable to me that this is the situation that you put yourself in like that. You have to prove you're not a one. And look, put some attention on it, man. To me, if you're gonna fail, if Brent's gonna fail, he needs to fail showing that he's not indifferent to the shit. That's not necessarily that. Listen, Stephen G, I might allow you to get away with this one, except for the fact that how many times did we hear Buckle tell the running backs, you guys better run them in from far because when we get in the red zone, it's going to 10. Bullshit. Oh, they should have. They didn't. RPOs, gimmicky. Yeah, I'll agree with you here. I think that can't be your base offense, man. It cannot be your base offense. But I agree. I mean, Teddy said, what did Teddy say? fired into the sun, I'm all for that. All for that. But here's the other thing I would tell you. Kurt Cignetti runs the shit out of that RPO. If you make the right choice in it, it can work. And you can be physical with it because they are at Indiana. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, thank you, Kevin. I couldn't have said it better myself. You must have said something else over here. Mm-hmm. Kevin, I was at the LSU game and I was hearing people all around me screaming, "Get him the fuck out!" You know, he almost threw a fourth interception. A lot of people don't remember that, but my mom was in there with me. I mean, it was. She was like, "Ooh, people are pissed." Yes, they are. Yes, they are. And I mean, again, I'm not even saying that it had to like be a permanent situation. But show that you I mean, look, if you really wanna run the ball with your quarterback, why would you not be running the football with Michael Hawkins? Put him in those situations. The dude's sub 4.4 speed. Explosive. Mateer's he's a decent runner. I mean, he's heady, that's surprising you with it or whatever, but he's not gonna go for 60 unless you're against Temple or some shit. Yeah. Yeah, that's it. Yes, sir, man. I agree. Mendoza processes extremely quickly. Mateer does not, and he doesn't process correctly either. Quickly is one thing, but being correct is another. A lot of these things are pre-snap reads. I know that a lot of these defenses are sophisticated enough that they change whenever you change up what you're doing. Once they show you that and you adjust and they adjust too. And what I will say when it comes to Venables is the teams that they got beat by, and especially when you start looking at what uh, Alabama did to them the second time around, and what Ole Miss did was that they waited to come to the line until the comms are off. So they were only going to get that first, if they go to this, we're going to switch to this. Because then they could come in, see what they're going to move to, and then they could make an adjustment, and they're not going to be able to tell it to Kip or whatever, and in certain situations that don't matter anyway. But there was ways to kind of help with that. That way, even if you did, and a lot of that people were making that about them stealing signals and things like that. They've only had comms for a couple of years. He could still steal your signs, and he has. So I didn't really think of it as much about that. But I think that they did a good job of doing that because then, you don't really have time to switch another time after 15 seconds, right? You could time that out to where you could kind of catch them off guard. And I think that it did work sometimes. Yes, I agree with that. 12 personnel today, tomorrow, and forever. I love 12 personnel, I'll give Buckle this. He likes it too, but they don't have fucking 12 personnel last year. They just didn't have it. They didn't have the personnel to run 12 personnel. They did not. Look, and I'll say this. I think it was a mistake to play Mateer in the Red River. If you wanted to start him, okay, cool. It turned when Michael Taft knocked the shit out of him on what was like the third drive. He busted his ass up. That's when he starts bleeding. That's when he stopped. He was not as willing a runner at that point. But his hand was clearly still hurt. I mean, he was bleeding out of the wound, for that matter. Busting the stitches, rubbing it all over his white pants. I mean, it looked like it wasn't good. And they continued to, at that point, go with it. Look, he's ineffective. Get him out.